As you know, Republicans have shown up this session ready to roll up our sleeves and do the work necessary to make sure that we're responding to COVID and responding to the needs of Minnesotans in a meaningful way. We have decided that this session we want to show leadership and statesmanship and frankly respond in the most appropriate ways to Minnesotans. So that's what the announcement this week is about. This has been, unfortunately, the least productive legislative session really in recorded history. We looked at data back into the early 1990s. That's as long as they have that data available. So this is the least number of bills that have been passed by the House of Representatives in a legislative session since the early 90s. The Democrats have passed only 5 bills, most of which are very inconsequential changes to minor deadlines and things like that. And this at a time for us, and really this is why we're so concerned. This is a time when Minnesotans really need us to step up and show leadership. So we are announcing this week that we're going to pass or bring to the floor for passage 4 major bills that we believe would be broadly bipartisan and have broad bipartisan support. So if House Democrats are not willing to lead, we are. House Republicans are willing to lead, and we're ready to step up. And so we offer this legislation because we know it's important, we know it's timely, and we know that Minnesotans need us to pass it, and they need us to do it now. So I'm going to turn it over to Ann New-Brindley, and she will introduce the members who will introduce the actual bills, and then we'll take some questions all together. Ann, go ahead.
And as Leader Daudt mentioned, the House Democrats are just paralyzed right now. They aren't bringing bills to the floor. They're slow rolling even bipartisan legislation, even priorities that have been requested by the governor's office. You know, in the Senate last week, they heard the PPP tax relief bill, a bill, by the way, that passed with 55 votes. That's a supermajority. That is veto proof. But DFL Senator Ann Rest put it absolutely brilliantly, and this is what she said. She said, "It is time for the House to stand up and address the people of Minnesota, address our businesses, address the workers, and support the provisions that are in this bill. They just can't keep ignoring the actions of the Senate, even though some of us oppose what they've been doing here, but they have to start taking things up and asserting a position." She said, "This amendment, I believe, will be sending a clear message to them to do exactly that and to take up their own bill, excuse me, and let the rest of us know where they stand. It's time for the House to start doing the work Minnesotans expect of us." So I'm going to introduce our leads who are going to just briefly touch on the bills we're looking to bring up on the House floor. The first is Representative Brian Johnson. He's our lead on the Public Safety Committee. And he is the chief author of the Safe Account bill that we believe could actually pass with 100+ votes if it was put on the House floor by the House DFL this week. Representative Greg Davids is our lead on the House Taxes Committee, and he will touch on the Paycheck Protection Program bill. Representative Pat Garofalo is our Ways and Means lead, and we'll discuss helping out Minnesota workers by exempting federal UI payments. And then finally, Representative Krisha, he's our lead on the Education Finance Committee, and he will talk about helping to get caught up if schools offer in-person summer school. And with that, I will turn the time over to Representative Brian Johnson.
Well, good morning. I'm here today to talk about the SAFE account, or the LEO account as the bill was named in the Senate. This is a governor's proposal for public safety response funding in emergencies when a public safety event that requires Chapter 12 to be used. I believe the bill that we put forward, which is endorsed by the Star and Tribune, represents a compromise that we could put on the governor's desk tomorrow. It funds the full requests of the governor for our law enforcement partners, prioritizing the city and the county officers that are involved in mutual aid, and sets aside the controversial policies that have slowed the bill down. If the House DFL does not have support in their own caucus for their own proposal, it's time to stop the delays and allow a fair vote on our proposal. There is no reason to keep dragging this out, especially when the bill is something that the governor has requested. The DFL has had little communication with us about this bill over the past several days. So I would encourage all of you to ask them what their plan is to move this important legislation for the safety of the citizens of Minneapolis and all of Minnesota forward. Thank you. And I will now turn this over to Representative Davids.
And thank you, Representative Johnson. As lead on the House Tax Committee, I just would like to go over a few things here. First of all, as Representative New Brindley mentioned, the Senate PPP tax exemption bill passed with a veto-proof majority, support from Republicans, DFLers, independents. Only the 12 most liberal senators in the Senate voted no. So we have a supermajority there. This is what a bipartisan bill looks like. Instead of putting it on the floor and doing what's right for Minnesota, we get excuse after excuse after excuse. It's time to start asking when they plan to take up the work of the Minnesota Senate is here to do. I've written letters to Governor Walz. I wrote a letter to Chair Marquardt about 2 weeks ago, asking them to prioritize this tax relief for our businesses, and I've heard almost nothing. So my question is very simple. What are we doing here? It's March 15th. We have about 2 months of session left, and we have done absolutely nothing. I am urging once again that the House DFL take action on the PPP issue. We have the surplus needed to help both workers and businesses. So it's time to bring the PPP bill up for a vote.
All right. I guess I'm next then. Thanks for the great introduction, Greg. Appreciate that. Can you guys hear me or not?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. So if you want to know the most important thing about the issue I'm talking about today, the bill we should bring forward regarding tax relief for those who received unemployment compensation, just go to your web browser and type in the number 10,200. That's it. You don't need to do anything else. Just go into Google, any search engine, and type in the number 10,200. And what you will see are a long list of articles regarding unemployment compensation. At the federal level, what they did is they passed a law saying that the first $10,200 of unemployment insurance income would be excluded from taxation. Obviously, they did this to provide targeted assistance to those who lost their jobs last year. It's just tax year 2020 they did this for. It passed with Democratic House votes, Democratic Senate votes, signed into law by a Democratic president. And what's happening in the state of Minnesota now is that people who lost their jobs last year, they're hurting and they're short on money. They're rushing to fill out their tax returns in the hopes of getting a tax refund to get some money in the bank to pay their bills. Unfortunately, a big chunk of their federal tax refunds are now going to the state of Minnesota because of our taxability on these unemployment insurance benefits, particularly the $300 and $600 enhancements that were given to benefits last year that they had no tax withholding taken out from. And so the state of Minnesota's government is collecting income tax revenue from people who were unemployed. What our bill is, and it's a separate bill, it's not attached to anything else, it just simply conforms the state of Minnesota to what the federal government has already done. And that is that the first $10,200 of unemployment insurance income would be excluded from state taxation. You're talking about tax bills of anywhere from $500 to $700 for a married couple who both lost their jobs. It's in excess of $1,000. And the reason why this is timely and urgent is these tax payments are due April 15th. So as people who lost their jobs last year are filling out their taxes right now, every day we are finding out more and more Minnesotans who are not able to get their federal tax refunds are simply being sent to the state of Minnesota because we're taxing these benefits. We conform exactly to the federal government. There's a cap on adjusted gross income of $150,000. We have $10,200, just like the Democratic members of Congress enacted into their law. And this is very time sensitive. This is targeted at people, only at those people who lost their jobs last year. Long term, we can address how to handle things in 2021. But right now, these are the Minnesotans who really need our help. In the history of the state of Minnesota, the government of the state of Minnesota has never been sitting on more money than it is right now. When you combine the budget surplus with our budget reserves and now the billions of dollars that have been sent from the federal government, this is a very modest tax relief package targeted at those who have received unemployment. In total loss of revenue to the state of Minnesota is about $300 million. This is nothing compared to the billions of dollars the state of Minnesota is sitting on. It's important that we do this and that we do it now. You'll notice we're not tying any of these proposals to anything else. We're not mandating or requiring anything else. There is broad bipartisan support for this bill. Let's help those people who were unemployed last year, who are facing tax bills right now, and let's get the job done. And so now I'll call on Representative Krisha to talk about our summer school proposal.
You're on mute there, Ron.
Thanks, Representative Garofalo, and thanks to all the other leads in the call and all your work. The biggest problem we have in schools right now is reducing the uncertainty. As our schools and school boards are planning for the next year, they need to know how they can get their kids back into class, they can address the learning loss, and more importantly, how they're going to be able to staff up. We have federal dollars flowing, and we know that that uncertainty can be waved aside if we put a bill in front. But as crazy as I've ever seen it, our House Democrats are playing gridlock with themselves, and they won't move anything. We have all the other parties in the legislature ready to move, ready to solve these problems, but the urgency just isn't there for our House Democrats, who continue to look to special interest groups for acknowledgement and playing Simon Says with their big interest groups, as opposed to getting our kids back in school. So our proposal, we've had numerous proposals, but the one that we're going to put forward now makes funding available to schools if they choose to have in-person learning options this summer. We recognize how critical that is for them to start catching up. And more importantly, our bill will give schools local control over their decision-making, as well as offset some of the unfair allocations that have been done with the federal dollars. We want to take the strings attached, don't want to put any controversial policy, and just get dollars into the hands of our school who can start to bring kids back in a way that gets them back on track towards graduation. Something that has been, we found, is that the Democrats have been more concerned with infection rates versus graduation rates, and we want to change that. So thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you to our leads. Thank you to Representative New Brindley. And, you know, just to summarize, we feel that it's important that the legislature and specifically the House of Representatives step up and respond to the pandemic and respond to some of the financial things that are happening as a result of the pandemic and as a result of federal benefits that have flowed to Minnesotans and to Minnesota businesses. We feel it's appropriate for us to provide the funding necessary that law enforcement agencies that send law enforcement officers in on mutual aid agreements into Minneapolis in the unfortunate event that we would have more unrest in the city of Minneapolis, that we need to step up and take care of that now. It should have been done weeks or even a month ago. And we believe that it's important to make sure that our school kids and our local school districts have the option, if they deem it's necessary, to provide some summer education to those students. So because the Democrats have really, for whatever reason, appeared to be paralyzed and have not stepped up and shown the leadership necessary, we have decided that we want to put these 4 bills on the table, that we intend to bring them forward in the House, on the House floor this week, and force votes on these 4 issues, and do that to send a message that we want to make sure that we're doing what Minnesotans expect us to do in this time. So it's very important that the House does these 4 bills and does them quickly. We specifically did not put any sort of gotcha language or ideological strings attached to any of these bills. These are just basic, good legislation that should pass the House floor on a very, very broadly bipartisan basis. And as I said earlier, this is the slowest start to a legislative session in recorded history as far as the number of bills passed. And really, I think the times that we're in demand, that we should be acting quicker, and we should be acting on a more bipartisan basis. So House Republicans have decided to, in absence of leadership by House Democrats, House Republicans have decided to step up and show the leadership necessary by offering these 4 bills and ask that they be passed out of the House of Representatives. So with that, I will open it up for our team to take any questions that you might have. And it looks like Bill Warner maybe has the first one.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Leader. Question about the schools provision, maybe for Representative Creshaw, and then the UI provision for Representative Garofalo. What are the dollar amounts associated with each? The governor has asked for, I think, 150, right, on the school portion. Is your bill in that range? And then the unemployment aspect of it, does it just cover the bonus, or does it cover the full amount? What's the dollar amount associated with that? If each of the leads can give us information on that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Leader Daudt. Thank you for the question. So our bill is in conjunction and on par with the governor's. I think we're north of 100 million. We certainly didn't undercut him. We want to work with the governor. And I'm sorry, I don't have the exact number because we were still putting them all together to make sure we had all the programs and the early learning scholarships available. But we're going to be right in line with the governor.
Yeah. Thanks, Representative, for that information.
I'll take the UI portion. And so, Bill, it's important to clarify, this is not just the bonus. The reason why is that at Congress, they figured out that if you just did the $300 and $600 numbers, you ended up with some really goofy effects where people who collected more unemployment benefits actually paid less in taxes than people who collected very little in unemployment benefits. So to smooth those out, what the federal government did was they just excluded $10,200 of unemployment benefits from everyone for just 2020. It's not a permanent change. It's just those who were unemployed last year, $10,200. The loss of revenue to the Minnesota General Fund is going to be in the $250 to $300 million range. But it's important to note, the government of the state of Minnesota is swimming in money. There are literally 2 Minnesotas right now. There's the state government that's got all this money, and you got Main Street businesses and families that are hurting. And so this bill is just specifically targeted at those from last year who lost unemployment, who lost their jobs, who have unemployment benefits, who right now are finding out that they have big tax bills. So that $250 to $300 million figure, that's a lot of money. But when it comes to the state of Minnesota's finances right now, the state of Minnesota is sitting on billions of dollars. It's easily achievable and affordable, and most importantly, it conforms with the Democratic members of Congress got into law at the federal level.
How are you going to proceed with this procedurally? Are you going to bring up all these bills, or make a motion, right, that they be brought to the floor today, or what's your sequence on this, please?
Well, our intent, thanks for the question, Bill. Our intent is to bring the bills up this week. The first one will come up today, and that is the PPP exemption. That bill passed the Senate, and the message from the Senate is sitting at the House desk. We will move to immediately take up that message and pass that bill to the governor's desk. If that happens, obviously it can be on the governor's desk today. That bill obviously passed the Senate 55 to 12, so very, very broadly bipartisan. And it is timely because those tax payments by businesses are due today. So it would be a great message for us to send to Minnesota businesses that the state of Minnesota is not going to profit off of the money the federal government sent to you to help you through this time. And I think that's very important to note, and a very important way to look at this. About $600 to $700 million of the surplus right now at the state of Minnesota is as a result of us taxing benefits that the federal government has sent to Minnesota unemployed workers and to Minnesota businesses to keep workers employed. So the state of Minnesota is literally profiting off of a situation where Minnesota businesses and Minnesota workers are struggling. And the federal government intended those dollars to be not taxed, and intended that to go to help those people. And so we should not take any of that money out of their pockets. The rest of the bills, some of them are being drafted now, will be introduced on the House floor either today or tomorrow, and we will then motion and move to bring them up for immediate consideration and passage in the House of Representatives.
So you're probably looking at Thursday maybe for these motions to come up, or?
We're probably, we don't know yet what the schedule is for the week. We only know that we'll have a session today and Thursday. However, last week we also had it on Tuesday and Wednesday. If that happens, we could have motions Tuesday and Wednesday as well. But frankly, we'd like to spread them out and have one each day. But Minnesotans need to know that these things are happening. They are very timely. This is going to cost Minnesotans a lot of money out of their pocket, and frankly, they need this help, and they need that assurance quickly that we're going to comply with the federal tax conformity.
May I just do one quick follow up? I don't see any other questions queued up, but I'll certainly relinquish immediately necessary. The governor has suggested maybe put all these. I think he alluded to putting all these measures together, right? In other words, having the PPP and some amount of UI and having the school thing, which is what he was really focusing on, and the other pieces. Is that a possibility at all, or are you going to try to bring them up separately from a strategic standpoint?
I'd like you all to take note that we're offering these four things. We know that all four of these are things that Democrats want. And traditionally in the past, maybe the Democrats would have thought they would have wanted more money for schools than we do. And so what they would say is, well, we're not going to give you any tax relief unless you fund a summer school program. Well, we're offering all four of these up because we know that they're the right thing to do. And we wanted to show the leadership that we know Minnesotans want and need right now in this time. Put them all together separate. We think it's okay for them to travel separate. There's no need for them to travel together. What needs to happen, however, is they need to pass quickly because Minnesotans need the assurance that these things are going to be happening. And in some cases, like the summer school districts need to plan for that. So they need to know quickly that these things are going to be passed into law.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Eric Escala.
Hey, Leader Daudt, at the congressional level, they have what's called the Hastert Rule, where you want to pass a bill with all the votes coming from your own caucus. Did you abide by that when you were the speaker? And is that what's going on now with the Democrats? Do you know?
I think we probably did. But what we want the majority to know, in my 10 years in the legislature, I have only seen a bill fail on the House floor, I think 3 times. And it happened here the week before last when Democrats brought the funding for law enforcement to the floor, and they didn't have the votes to pass it. Unfortunately, they hadn't included us in any conversations about that. While they call that compromise language, I don't know who they compromised with because they never even talked to us about it. We have actually offered some very minor changes to that legislation. We sent them an offer about a week and a half ago now. And I was told over a week ago that they had an offer for us, although we still haven't seen it. So obviously there is enough division and divide within their own caucus that they're having trouble figuring out whether they can pass these bills out. But the reality is we want them to know that these are 4 issues that we support, and we will put up the votes to pass them. Provided, and I want everybody to note that we have not put any ideological gotcha language in any of these bills. These are just clean bills to fund these 4 priorities. And provided that Democrats don't try to put their own ideological crap in these bills, we're going to put up the votes to pass them off the House floor. And so this is our way of saying, hey, you're off to too slow of a start. Minnesotans need you to step up. They need you to respond. And these are 4 issues which we think are important, which we think need to happen right away. So our hope is that we can start acting like a legislature in a very bipartisan way that responds to the demand that Minnesotans have for action and need in this time. And we can do that in a bipartisan basis. I think that's what Minnesotans want, and I hope that we can do that.
But this is a rite of spring, isn't it? The minority says things aren't moving fast enough at the legislature, right?
Well, these are times that we have never seen before. With all of the impacts of COVID, the economic recovery from COVID, and we've had schools basically shut down for a year. These are things we never thought we would see in history, right? And here we are. These times demand that the legislature step up. So this isn't your normal hey, we don't think you're doing enough. We want you to do more. This is Minnesotans need you to step up and show some leadership. Minnesotans need us all to do that. We're going to rise up and respond to that. And these bills show that. I mean, the Democrats, when their bill went down on the House floor, we had a proposal. We had an amendment on the House floor, which was a clean bill. It was actually closer to the governor's proposal than the House Democrats' proposal, and it was endorsed by the Star Tribune editorial board. So, we know that we know how to show leadership, and we're willing to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Patricia Lopez, did you have a question? I saw your.
Yes, I did. I wanted to know, my internet blinked out for just a moment at that space where you were talking about the state profiting off the benefits paid out to workers and businesses that had taken out the PPP loans. And I'm wondering, do you have an amount on that?
Well, the reality is that, and I'm going to turn it over to Pat Garofalo here in just a second. The reality is that, and I think that's a very good way to look at this, about $600 to $700 million of the surplus that the state is expecting right now is as a result of taxing benefits, which were sent to help Minnesota businesses and help displaced workers in the state of Minnesota. So those were dollars directly to help Minnesota businesses keep people employed, the Paycheck Protection Act, and then also dollars that went to supplement unemployment benefits. So these were never intended. They're not taxable at the federal level. They were never intended to be taxable here. But I think it's very important to look at it from the perspective of Minnesota is actually profiting off of taxing benefits that were sent to help Minnesotans through this pandemic. And we think that's unconscionable. We think it's unintentional, and we think it needs to be fixed. And because of the deadlines of tax payments due on businesses now on March 15th and tax payments due by individuals on April 15th, we think it's very, very timely, and we need to do it immediately. So, Pat, I'm going to turn it over to you for maybe a glimpse of what the actual dollar amounts and how much we might be profiting off of them.
Yep. And so, Pat Lopez, this is Pat Garofalo.
Yes.
Yep. So you're talking about $460 million for the PPP loans, and like I said, about $250 to $300 million for those on unemployment. But the state has, plenty of money. The government has plenty of money. This is just businesses that qualified for assistance and just people who were laid off from their jobs last year. And just imagine a person who's in that financial crisis right now. They're hurrying up, they're filling out their federal tax refund, filling out their tax forms because they want to get a tax refund back to help out. And when they're doing it, they're finding out that a big chunk of their federal tax refund is now going to the state of Minnesota in the form of higher taxes. And so it's personally devastating to a lot of people. And, we've got April 15th is the deadline for individuals. So you'll notice we're not tying these things together. They're not, as Leader Daudt said, we're not adding new provisions. We are just simply conforming with what the Democrats in Congress passed, excluding $10,200 in unemployment insurance income. There is zero reason, there is zero excuse, there is zero benefit to delaying on this. People are hurting. The state of Minnesota has the money. Let's demonstrate to people we can be adults, and let's help some people out.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Is there a limit on the PPP? So it was 10,200 at the unemployment compensation level. Is there a similar exclusion cap on PPP loans?
No, our bill would basically exempt all PPP loan forgiveness from state income tax.
It conforms with what they're doing at the federal level, Pat. So at the at the federal level, they did 10,200 and then no cap on PPP. We're doing the same thing.
And to Pat, this is Greg Davids here. To Pat's question, if you look at a map of the Midwest, you will notice that every state surrounding Minnesota and many, many more have already conformed on the PPP. So this is something that we just need to do this. As Lead Garofalo said, the money's there. Let's get this done.
So we're the outlier.
Yes,
Yes.
definitely. And I would also note too, and Pat, if you want to comment on this, the bill that's coming from the Senate that's sitting at the House desk that we will move to bring up for immediate consideration today, it passed 55-12 out of the Senate. That bill has the PPP exemption for the full amount of the forgiveness of the PPP loans. It also has a small amount of exemption on the UI benefit. We actually believe as a caucus that we want to go beyond that. And that's what Representative Garofalo's bill does. So it's a little bit confusing because there's the way the Senate drafted that bill, but we agree with what they want to do. We actually would go beyond that. And we don't think that these are things that should be traded or bargained or held up for other things in the future. These are things that Minnesotans need, and they need it now. And we have no excuse to not pass those immediately.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I think that's it. Well, thank you very much. In closing, obviously the Senate is acting at a little quicker pace than the House is. They have passed 16 bills off the Senate floor. The House has passed only 5 bills. Again, that's the slowest start since the early 90s. And so we're asking House Democrats to step up, show some leadership, and pass these things out that Minnesotans need quickly. And we appreciate your visiting with us today. And if you have further questions, Andrew can answer questions on the timing and when these bills might come up on the House floor, or what House file numbers these bills are once they get introduced. We'd be happy to share language, spreadsheets, any of that information that you might need. So again, thanks everybody, and we'll look forward to seeing you this week in St. Paul.
Thank